I would like to start off by thanking everyone to come out and participate this morning for the fourth quarter annual EMS Awards. Got a couple of awards that I want to present this morning before we move into the crew members awards that's going to be issued by Chief Petit. The last meeting I said, and I think it's going to be something that I say every meeting that we do this in, is that most people in our profession don't get into this for the recognition of it. They don't want to be recognized. They don't want to be, called the heroes and all that kind of stuff. But all of that doesn't mean that the work that you do every single day, in and day out, doesn't deserve the recognition for the work that you do. And that's what we want to do today. That's what the purpose of these awards are for, is just to let you know that all of us that have been up here have sat in your shoes. We understand the importance of what it is that you do every single day. And it's truly an honor to be in the positions that we are in our organization. So if I haven't met you before, my name is Jonathan Burnett. I currently have the opportunity and the privilege to serve as the fire chief for the Henry County Fire Department. So a couple of weeks ago, we participated in the Region 4 Advisory Council annual awards. And out of that, we took home a lot of recognition from that meeting, and I want to recognize two things individually specific. So the first award that I want to recognize goes to everybody from the top all the way down, recognition in our organization. All the way down includes all 415 members of our organization. So this year, Henry County Fire Rescue was selected as the State of Georgia DPH Region 4 EMS Service of the Year Award. So that's a big applause to everybody that serves in the organization. And with that, I would like to present the award to County Manager Ms. Matthews. So a little bit about what DPH Region 4 is. The state's broken up into several regions. Henry County is part of Region 4. There's about 12 or 13, I think, counties that are grouped and made up of Region 4 through the Department of Public Health. So when you think about the services that are involved in that, it's not just county services, but all of your private services that are out there also. So out of all those, again, Henry County was selected. So big kudos to everybody that serves in the organization. Second award that I want to give is to an individual. Again, it's the State of Georgia Department of Public Health, Region 4, Paramedic Director of the Year. The Director of the Year for our organization not only has to serve over paramedic school, but he also has to serve over EMT school. And as many of you probably don't know the details or the finite details of what that means, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes in order for us to be able to teach our own programs in-house. If we weren't able to teach our own programs in-house, we would have to substitute that out to somebody else, right? Another organization. It's not just as simple as hiring somebody to come in. There's a lot of things that the organization has to do on the back end in order to do that. But I am proud to say that our organization was selected an individual for the Director of the Year, and also not only that, our AEMT program has historically for the past 5 or 6 years, I believe, had the highest pass rate percentage of any EMT school in the nation, okay? in the nation. So not only just in the state of Georgia, but across the nation, and that's how successful our program has been. So this award specifically goes to Chief William Petit as Director of the Year. thank you for your time. I'm going to turn it over to Chief Petit, our EMS Operations Chief.
So as Chief Burnett alluded to, we turned in quite a few awards at the Region 4 banquet, and we did really well. And it's not anything that anyone on this side of that rail does. It's simply what you guys do every day. And I want you to know it doesn't go unnoticed, and I want you to know it goes recognized daily. So thank you for what you guys do on a daily basis. So last year we awarded our own county paramedic of the year. And we went ahead and nominated that same person for Region 4 paramedic of the year. And some of the comments we got about this paramedic, it goes to show that to be a true paramedic in the field, what really needs to be learned cannot be taught in the classroom. Compassion, empathy, just a sincere desire just to be able to want to help somebody. It can't be taught. You either have it or you don't. This guy's got it, and he shows it every day. He was paramedic of the year for 2021. The comments from his peers, where he constantly shows a positive attitude and a sincere pride in his work. His attention to detail goes unmatched. His clinical reasoning is unmatched by anyone. Patient advocacy on each patient encounter, which is key. Again, compassion and empathy is not on your truck checklist. Those things aren't there. You have to want to do that daily. Open to constructive feedback and helping others with clinical questions and improvement. So the Region 4 Paramedic of the Year is Mr. Desmond Walker. We also ran a pediatric call last year that while it may not have a tremendous amount of life-saving efforts as we would see on our show, Chicago Fire and all that good stuff, what did happen was the paramedics and the EMTs on scene did a quality assessment. Again, another tool that's not found on your checklist. They did a quality assessment of this patient, and had they not done a quality assessment and taken this patient to the right facility at the right time, this patient undoubtedly, according to the surgeons at CHOA, undoubtedly would have died. So, this injury occurred on the football field. It was an abdominal injury that very well, some folks may have very well got a refusal on. Patient was presenting in a way that totally changed on the way to the hospital. Patient somewhat crashed, became hemodynamically unstable. They set a trauma alert off with CHOA. The patient actually immediately went to surgery with a complete rupture of the spleen. Had that not been picked up in the field, that patient would have died at home. It very well could have happened. So, this award, the Dr. Joe Simon Pediatric Award of Excellence for Region 4, goes to the following. Paramedic Alan Beavers, don't know if he made it. He just recently retired, so if you guys are still in contact with him, please tell him congratulations. Danielle Williams, Advanced EMT. Adam Bedford, Paramedic. Stephen Daniels, EMT Intermediate. And Robert Pops Laduciere. Please come forward. display that station. So the next two awards, they're new. They're the Meritorious Service Commendations. We do stuff every day that goes unrecognized, and we on this side, we know that. But on this particular call, two folks went. While we say it's something we would do no matter what on every call, they went above and beyond. So on this particular call, this was a house fire, and it was back in November 14th of 22. Units were dispatched to a report of a building fire with occupants trapped in the building. Heavy fire and smoke were visible upon arrival, and units began preparing for an interior attack. There was a police officer on scene that advised Porter that he could hear someone on the inside calling for help in the garage, and firefighter Porter advised his officer of the situation and had the police officer directed to the location. Through the heat and smoke in the garage, Porter could not see the elderly patient, or could see the elderly patient down in the garage with fire showing in the doorway behind her. He quickly donned his face piece, entered the structure. The victim was still partly in the doorway and pinned under a wheelchair ramp. Alone by himself, firefighter Porter extricated the victim and removed her from the structure. Once outside, the victim stated that two more people were trapped, and this was reported to command. Firefighter Porter then began medical care of the patient until relieved by Rescue 9 and QRV-8. Firefighter Aaron Porter then rejoined the attack and searched for remaining victims. Is Aaron Porter here? No. Let's give him a round of applause, please. That's you guys hear me saying it sometimes. That's hashtag doing it. That's making a grab. It doesn't happen every shift, but when we can do something like that, it makes a difference in someone's life. And then carrying over into that call, that same call, as I stated earlier, some things can't be taught in the classroom. That patient that was pulled out of the house by firefighter Porter had to be transported to Grady. Horrible burns. The patient was horribly burned. The paramedic that transported that patient to the hospital knew definitively that patient probably was not going to survive their injuries. So, you can't teach this. And this is true pride in the profession. So, it blows my mind that she thought about this. But she takes her cell phone and she gives it to the patient so that she can talk to her family for the last time. Who's going to do that? No, it's just something that's not taught in the classroom, right? So the Meritorious Service Award goes to Courtney Cheek for her actions on this call. Is she here? Let's give her a round of applause. You can't teach that. You either have it or you don't. You're either thinking about that patient and their family or you're not. And that's, I don't know how else to say it other than that's impressive as hell. We should all strive to be an advocate for every patient, every day, like she did. So trauma awards, moving forward. This was a significant incident in Henry County. Those of you who were on this call are going to remember this call like it was yesterday, I'm sure. It was a very significant two-vehicle MVC. There were 5 patients on the call, all with significant injuries. Some with injuries that we didn't even know about until they got to the trauma center. On this scene, we had one person in cardiac arrest secondary to their injuries, ejection from a vehicle that apparently was moving at a pretty high rate of speed. The vehicle was split in half and the vehicle was on fire. Patient was multiple feet away from the vehicle. So this is an award going to quite a few people because without the actions of all of these people on this scene, there would have been some fatalities. By the way, the traumatic arrest, which we all are taught, traditionally, traumatic arrests don't survive. While he is paralyzed, this patient did survive the traumatic arrest on scene and is alive today to see their family. So, Rescue 10, Robert Hill and Kyle McNeil, if you're here, please come forward. Rescue 11, Holly Lindquist and Devontae Thomas. Rescue 16, Barry Garman, Anthony Belcher. Rescue 51, Dora Steiner and Isaiah Mills. Engine 7, Tim Keck, Christopher Palmer. Engine 13, John Johnson, Matthew Henry. Engine 16, AJ Hughes, Clint Shell. And Squad 3, Kevin Gillum, Nicholas Smith, and Jonathan Owens. If you're here, please come forward. Now, on this same call, I believe IT brought me the microphone as a hint. So, on this same call, traumatic arrest that occurred, the crew that actually took care of that particular patient was Michael Johnson and Thomas McCulley on Rescue 7, and on QRV 7, Lieutenant Christopher Johnson. If you guys are here, please come forward. Nope, let's give them a round of applause. So our next set of awards are for medical awards. While we experience medical calls every day, more times than not, as all of you know, we're not doing paramedic skills or AMT skills on a lot of these calls. The majority of our calls are not necessarily emergencies as we know them. But on occasion, we do experience those emergencies. On this particular call was a patient, SVT AFib with RVR. Those of you, it's a bad heart rhythm, right? So it's bad. Critical patient is hemodynamically unstable, and without the crew's interventions of cardiac monitoring, vagal maneuvers, venous access, the adenosine cardism, the patient actually converted, and that's Rescue 9, Christopher Crow and Jason Forrest. Please come forward. So the next group can come on forward. It's Rescue 9, Holly Lindquist, DeWitt Lucas, Engine 8, Jared Story, Devontae Thomas, and on QRV 11, Michael Conaway. Y'all come forward, please. So on this particular call, this call started out as an invalid assist, which automatically for some folks puts you in a mindset of we've got nothing when we get there. But actually, when our crew got there, because of the skills that aren't on the checklist, that compassion, the empathy, the thorough patient assessment, this invalid assist actually turned out to be a stroke, confirmed at the ER, and the treatments performed at the ER. Multiple interventions include cardiac monitoring, multiple IV attempts. The engine crew that arrived first, they were spot on with their assessment. They recognized that this was not your non-emergent lift out of the floor invalid assist. Again, assessment skills, you either have them or you don't. The engine was right, ended up being a significant stroke. The differential diagnosis by all crews and the hands-on assessment helped this patient survive their stroke. Congratulations. So here, over the last couple years, we've run countless respiratory failure, respiratory arrests secondary to COVID pneumonia, etc. This particular call actually occurred on the interstate. It was a respiratory distress that turned out to be a respiratory failure call, secondary to fluid in the lungs, pulmonary edema. When our crews initially got there, the patient's pulse ox was in the tank. The language barrier, they had absolutely nothing they had no way to communicate with the patient other than, again, those assessment skills. Through their assessment, they actually realized exactly what was going on without being able to talk to the patient. So with those assessment skills, they actually found out that this was a flash pulmonary edema patient. They provided the proper treatments, the CPAP, the multiple IV attempts, and the proper medication, and this patient survived this episode. Jesse Rosenberg, Jarvis Jones, Lieutenant McCullough, Ryan Bogards, and Javaris Jones. If you're here, please come forward. Lieutenant Snuffy McCullough just racking these EMS awards up. Next call is actually a respiratory arrest that was at home. Respiratory was actually described agonal at best upon arrival. Through the multiple interventions, nasal airway, the BVM, 12 lead, they administered EpiIM, albuterol, atrovent, magnesium sulfate through the IV they established. Dravian Ivy, Nicholas Radford, Lieutenant Derek Murdoch, and Sanchez Minor, please come forward. This patient actually survived this incident. Thankful to your actions. Come forward. Next patient is an anaphylactic patient. It's one of those calls we generally don't run a lot of, a true anaphylaxis. This patient actually presented with the angioedema, wheezing, hemodynamically unstable, the urticaria. Through their interventions of EpiIM, albuterol, Benadryl, Dex, the 12 lead, they literally fixed this patient before they got to the hospital. When they arrived at the hospital, the patient got Pepsid and was discharged. So through their actions, this patient was not only at the hospital only for just a couple hours, but survived this incident. So the crew members, Vandora Steiner and Darian Rice, if you're here, please come forward. The next patient, some of you may remember from a house fire. This patient actually found themselves in a situation where they had nowhere to go, and we actually ended up running a medical call on this patient. They were found to be in DKA. They were hypothermic when we got there. They had an altered mental status due to the illnesses that they had and to the comorbidities and no medications that the patient had. The patient was found in a vehicle, again, due to not having somewhere to return to, and insulin pump actually became lost. Multiple interventions through just a simple warming of the patient, the IV with warming fluids, and the 12 lead getting this patient to the right facility at the right time saved this patient's life. The crew, Thomas McCulley, Michael Johnson, and Courtney Cheek. If you're here, please come forward. Respiratory illness with altered mental status due to hypoxia, pulse ox in the 70s upon our arrival. Albuterol, atrovent, Dex, Mag, the non-rebreather 12 lead IV transport to the hospital in a rapid fashion. By the time they got there, patient was alert and oriented ×4. The crew of Deborah Hope, Matthew East, Benjamin Hollingsworth, and Wesley Burford. Please come forward if you're here. This is another respiratory failure patient, flash pulmonary edema, literally drowning. Patient, due to our crew's interventions, this patient survived this medical incident and was discharged from the hospital only a couple days later. The crew of Bradley Benton, Daniel Harrison, Jarvis Jones, and Brian Wentz. If you're here, please come forward. Last medical award goes out to a true respiratory failure. Patient was found at a restaurant, hypoxic, unable to speak, altered LOC, again, another language barrier, and only through their actual hands-on assessment were they able to figure out exactly what was going on with this patient. Through the use of the interventions in the field, this patient again survived this medical illness, a respiratory failure. The Rescue 12, Zachary Christie, Justin Ellis, Engine 4, Sean Patillo, and Nicholas Eubanks. If you're here, please come forward. Last awards reception, we inadvertently gave out this award to the wrong crew. It was our fault, and we want to make sure we correct that and the crew gets recognized appropriately. This was quite a few months ago. This was actually a walk-in or drive-up childbirth that actually happened outside on the ramp at Station 12. When the baby was actually delivered, the baby was cyanotic, apneic, and without those initial actions of the engine crew that happened to be in quarters, this baby improved with the interventions to include the bag valve mask ventilations of this patient. So Engine 12, Lieutenant Kenny Brunswig, and retired Robin Richardson, if you're here, please come forward. The last pediatric award was for a 3-year-old found having seizures, initially described as febrile with a history of epilepsy, remained unresponsive throughout our initial assessment. We got there, the initial pulse ox was in the low 70s, which of course everyone understands here that with pediatrics that's definitely not going to last long until you're working a cardiac arrest. Without the proper interventions of this crew, this patient would have definitely have went into respiratory arrest. The interventions include the BVM with an OPA. They administered the Versed to stop the seizures. They transported the patient to the proper facility, and the patient was actually admitted to the PICU and discharged only a couple days later. So Rescue 5 crew of Bradley Benton, Malik Wallace, Engine 5 crew Joshua Harrison, and Caleb Posey. If you're here, please come forward. Now, as most of you in the field of operations, as you know, we continue to maintain one of the highest ROSC rates, not only in the Southeast but in the nation. We also continue to maintain one of the highest cardiac arrest save rates in the nation. So that's important because a lot of times when we go out on this cardiac arrest, in some of our minds, we automatically go out there thinking, well, there's not much that we can do. But here in Henry County, we have learned through the tools that we have on the truck, the training, that's just not the case here. We don't necessarily nitpick our cardiac arrest saves. These are all comers. If they're not breathing and they don't have a pulse, they count in our numbers. That's different from a lot of other agencies. So this is very important that everyone needs to understand that when we get there on these cardiac arrests, they're not breathing and they're pulseless. They don't have a pulse. So for this particular quarter, we actually had 6 cardiac saves just this quarter alone. So I'd like to recognize all of these crews. The first one was actually a pediatric cardiac arrest. Rescue 11 crew of Holly Lindquist, Cam Irwin, Engine 6, Lieutenant Wendy McLean and Wade Lewis, and QRV 11, Michael Conaway. If you're here, please come forward. Again, this patient was found pulseless and apneic, meaning no pulse, and they weren't breathing. Rescue 5 crew of Brittany Brawner, Amanda Pitts. Engine 5 crew of Rodriguez Barnes, Carlos Bentley, and Daniel Parker. If you're here, please come forward. And so everyone's clear, these patients were actually discharged from the hospital with no additional neurodeficit. So they went back home to their families very similar to the way they left. So it's very important. The next crew, again, patient found pulseless and apneic. Rescue 9 crew of Justin Burden, Holly Lindquist. Engine 8 crew of Brian Crisp and Morris Bador. Engine 9, Jose Cortez Guerrera, Michael Farmer, and DeWitt Lucas. This next patient also found pulseless, apneic, no heart rate, not breathing. Discharged from the hospital with neuro intact. Rescue 12 crew of Joshua Belk and Micah Stewart. Engine 4, Lieutenant David Blunt and Travis Morgan. If you're here, please come forward. Another cardiac arrest with Rescue 8, Juan Hernandez, Devontae Thomas, QRV 8, Michael Norton. If you're here, please come forward.
Concludes all the awards for today. Again, I want to say thank you for everybody coming out. I know it might seem like there's a lot of awards that are given, and it's just, again, as Chief Petit said, it's a true testament to the service that each one of you and the dedication that each one of you give back to the community, because these people's lives are truly different because of the efforts that you put into coming to work every single day. And without that, not only them, but the effects of that loss for the entire family would be truly, truly do make a difference. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you do every day. With that being said, again, thank y'all for coming out today. We look forward to the next quarter. As always, if you have anything from us, please let us know. So one big last round of applause. Thank y'all for your service.